Tesla just continues to disappoint.
Tesla taking the biggest hit, down 6%. That's not the only potential headache for Elon Musk.
The once warm diplomatic rapport between the United States and Canada has all but disintegrated, replaced by a brutal tariff war that is sending shockwaves through North America. Gone are the symbolic gestures of friendship. Ottawa is now responding with sweeping retaliatory tariffs and a sweeping overhaul of its supply chain strategy, one that aims to permanently decouple from U.S. dependency. The Trump administration's decision, as of April 2025, to impose a staggering 25% tariff on all vehicle and auto part imports from Canada and Mexico has triggered a firestorm of economic consequences. Not since 1984, when the U.S. enacted temporary protective measures against Japanese vehicles at a comparatively moderate 15–20%, has Washington deployed such aggressive industrial protectionism. This time, the measures are harder, sharper, and they carry heavier collateral: industry shockwaves, layoffs, and factory shutdowns. The fallout was immediate. Stellantis, one of the world's largest automakers, was forced to issue temporary layoffs for nearly 900 U.S. workers across 5 facilities, including those in Michigan and Indiana. In Canada, the Windsor Assembly Plant in Ontario suspended operations, while the Toluca plant in Mexico extended its production halt. According to S&P Global Mobility, the new tariffs could inflate production costs by $6,250 on a standard $25,000 vehicle, a jaw-dropping 25% increase, unprecedented in modern automotive economics. For context, during Trump's 2018 tariff wave, 10% on aluminum and 25% on steel, average U.S. vehicle prices rose just $250–400 per unit. Edmunds. But this new tariff regime is playing at a whole new scale. The EV market, ground zero of the price surge. The Anderson Economic Group projects that this round of tariffs could hike vehicle prices by $5,000 to $15,000. Electric vehicles, EVs in particular, whose production is heavily reliant on cross-border parts, will be the hardest hit. Already, the Tesla Model Y long-range AWD has jumped from $47,990 to over $51,000. The Ford Mustang Mach-E Standard range has seen price increases ranging from $2,000 to $3,500 compared to 2024 levels. For comparison, back in 2018, when Trump imposed a 10% tariff on aluminum and 25% on imported steel, the average car price in the U.S. only increased by around $250–400 depending on the model. This year's volatility is 5 times higher, and that's just the beginning. Middle-class squeeze, EV dreams. Deferred middle-income consumers, the core demographic for EV adoption, are now deferring purchases, unable to bridge the gap between sticker prices and stagnant subsidies. In 2022, federal EV tax credits averaged $7,500. But under the weight of 2025's surging vehicle prices, that cushion barely softens the blow. In many cases, consumers still face out-of-pocket increases in the thousands. Investment paralysis, North America's EV future in peril. Major automakers are reassessing. Ford has delayed the launch of its 3-row electric SUV in Canada and postponed its next-gen electric pickup rollout in Tennessee. Rivian, too, has scrapped plans for a multi-billion-dollar facility in Georgia, echoing its 2020 decision to halt expansion during the COVID-era supply chain crisis. Tesla is not only grappling with ballooning production costs, but is now squarely in Canada's political crosshairs. The Canadian government has removed Tesla from its national EV rebate program and frozen $43 million CAD in tax returns, moves widely interpreted as targeted retaliation against Elon Musk, a close Trump ally. While the U.S. retreats, China advances. China, meanwhile, is capitalizing. BYD, through its luxury EV sub-brand Denza, is expanding into Europe, directly challenging legacy players like BMW and Mercedes. As Washington alienates its oldest allies, Beijing is forging new commercial ground. Canada charts. A new course: Canada is rapidly expanding trade relations outside the U.S. orbit. New agreements with the European Union, France, Germany, Mexico, and South Korea aim to diversify exports and reduce vulnerability. In 2024 alone, Canada-EU trade rose 7%, triple the growth rate seen during 2017–2020. According to the OECD, if Trump's tariffs remain in place through the end of 2025, North American EV production costs could rise between 8 to 12%. That would eclipse even the 2008 energy crisis, which triggered a 4 to 6% increase in production costs due to oil prices. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. What lies beneath this economic iceberg is a far deeper geopolitical reordering. The full consequences of this trade war are only beginning to unfold, and they're coming for wallets, jobs, and long-standing alliances. Stay tuned. The next revelation might just change everything.
The trade war between the world's two largest economies.
Tariffs on U.S. goods to 125%.
Beijing is hiking its retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods today from 84% to 125%.
If you thought the U.S.-China trade war was cooling down, think again. This week, China dropped a bombshell, slapping a massive 125% tariff on U.S. imports in retaliation to President Trump's latest tariff hikes. And they didn't hold back, accusing the U.S. of weaponizing tariffs as a tool of bullying and coercion, and getting this, turning itself into a joke. Today, we're diving deep into what this means for the global economy, why both sides are digging in, and how people are reacting online. From ex-posts to expert takes, we've got it all covered. So grab a snack, hit that like button, and let's unpack this trade war drama. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss an update. So, let's get to the nitty-gritty. On April 11, 2025, Beijing announced it's raising tariffs on U.S. imports to a jaw-dropping 125%. This comes after President Donald Trump upped U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods to 145%. It's like a high-stakes game of economic ping-pong, and nobody's backing down. Here's the context. The U.S. has been piling tariffs on Chinese goods for years, claiming it's to protect American jobs and counter China's trade practices. Trump's latest move was to jack up duties even higher, saying it'll bring manufacturing back to the U.S. But China's not buying it. They're hitting back hard, targeting American products like agricultural goods, tech components, and more. And their statement? Whew! They called U.S. tariffs extortionate and a form of unilateral bullying. That's a diplomatic shade on a whole new level. China even said they're done playing tariff roulette, refusing to raise duties beyond 125% because, quote, Trump's moves have become a joke. Bold words, but what's really at stake here? Let's zoom out. Tariffs are essentially taxes on imported goods, which means they make stuff more expensive. With the U.S. now at 145% and China at 125%, prices for everything from iPhones to soybeans could skyrocket. American consumers? You're probably paying more at the store. Chinese manufacturers? They're losing U.S. markets. And globally, economists are sounding alarms about supply chain chaos. But it's not just about wallets. This is a power play. The U.S. wants to kneecap China's economic rise. China wants to flex its muscle and show it won't be pushed around. Both sides are betting the other blinks first, but history shows trade wars rarely have winners. Just look at the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930. Spoiler, it deepened the Great Depression. Now here's where it gets messy. Posts on X are buzzing with reactions, and they're all over the map. Some folks are cheering China for standing up to what they call U.S. arrogance. Others say tariffs are a necessary evil to bring jobs back home. Let's see what people are saying. X is lit with takes on this tariff showdown. One user called it tariff pong, and honestly, that's the vibe. Another post said China's 125% move shows they're done playing nice, accusing the U.S. of bullying. But not everyone agrees. Some American users are like, Trump's protecting our workers, China's just mad they're losing. The divide is real. Then there's the global angle. Reuters reported that this escalation could upend global supply chains, and X-users are picking up on that. One post warned, say goodbye to cheap electronics. Another joked, time to stockpile soybeans. It's half memes, half panic out there. But let's be real, X isn't just memes. It's where you see raw, unfiltered takes. And right now, the sentiment's split. Some see this as a geopolitical chess match, others as economic suicide. What do you think? Drop your take in the comments below. So, what's next? If this trade war keeps escalating, we're looking at a domino effect. Higher tariffs mean higher costs for businesses, which get passed to consumers. Small businesses could get crushed. Farmers, already hit by earlier tariffs, might lose even more markets. And globally, countries like Japan, Germany, and Australia could get caught in the crossfire as trade slows. But here's the kicker. Tariffs don't just hurt the other guy. The U.S. imported $427 billion in Chinese goods last year. Slapping 145% tariffs means American companies and shoppers feel the pinch too. China's betting they can outlast the U.S., especially with their own markets diversifying. Meanwhile, Trump's doubling down, saying tariffs are a beautiful tool. Who's right? Depends on who you ask.
Oh, I think the tariffs are going to be the greatest thing we've ever done as a country. It's going to make our country rich again.
Okay, let's cut through the noise. Both sides are posturing, but the math doesn't lie. Tariffs sound tough, but they're a blunt weapon. They hurt consumers and businesses way more than they hurt governments. China's calling out U.S. bullying, and yeah, there's truth to that. Using economic might to strong-arm smaller economies isn't new. But let's not kid ourselves. China's no saint. They've got their own playbook. Subsidies, currency tweaks, you name it. What bugs me is the spin. Leaders on both sides act like this is a win-or-lose game. But the losers are regular people. Your grocery bill, your phone, your car, those prices don't care who's winning. And calling the U.S. a joke. That's just China playing to their home crowd. Both sides are more alike than they admit, flexing for votes and clout. So, where do we go from here? Some experts think both sides might cool off and negotiate, maybe a new trade deal by mid-2025. Others say we're headed for a full-blown economic Cold War. One thing's sure, this isn't ending soon. Keep an eye on upcoming talks at the G20 or APEC summits for clues. All right, that's the scoop on the U.S.-China tariff saga. What do you think? Smart move by China? Or is this whole trade war a mess? Let me know in the comments, and if you want more breakdowns like this,
President Trump has added in tariffs against China so far this term to 145%.
China is calling on US President Donald Trump to completely cancel the reciprocal tariffs against the country.
Shocker from Beijing. China has just demanded that the United States correct its mistakes and roll back the controversial Trump-era tariffs that reignited a global trade war. The timing? Critical. The stakes? Unprecedented. And the implications could shake the global economy to its core. As of April 2025, China's Ministry of Commerce is putting intense diplomatic pressure on Washington to remove punitive tariffs imposed during Donald Trump's presidency. Tariffs that continue to weigh heavily on global supply chains, manufacturing costs, and diplomatic relations. But is this a genuine push for cooperation, or a strategic move in an escalating power struggle between the world's two largest economies? To understand what's happening now, we need to go back to 2018. That's when President Donald Trump launched a sweeping tariff campaign targeting hundreds of billions of dollars worth of Chinese goods. His administration justified the move by citing intellectual property theft, unfair trade practices, and the ballooning trade deficit. By 2019, tariffs were imposed on over $360 billion worth of Chinese imports, with rates ranging between 10% and 25%. In response, China retaliated with its own counter-tariffs on U.S. goods, triggering the most aggressive trade standoff in modern history. Fast forward to 2025. Despite a change in administration, most of those tariffs remain in place. And China? It's had enough. In a statement issued this week, China's Ministry of Commerce declared, the U.S. should cancel all additional tariffs imposed on China as soon as possible. They called the tariffs a violation of World Trade Organization rules and accused Washington of undermining global trade norms. First, China's demand is not just economic, it's political. Officials in Beijing are using strong language, calling the tariffs a symbol of American unilateralism and bullying. They're framing the issue as a test of Washington's commitment to global cooperation. The language isn't just diplomatic, it's strategic, designed to signal strength to both domestic and international audiences. Second, the U.S. position remains ambiguous. While President Biden has made minor adjustments to some tariff rules, including exemptions for key industries, his administration has largely kept the Trump-era policies intact. Critics argue this is political caution ahead of the 2024 elections, where Trump remains a major force and tough-on-China rhetoric is popular among his base. Third, businesses on both sides of the Pacific are suffering. American importers are still paying billions in extra duties, which are often passed down to consumers. Chinese exporters, meanwhile, are struggling to maintain competitiveness in the U.S. market, especially in the tech, electronics, and machinery sectors. And as inflation continues to linger worldwide, many economists argue these tariffs are hurting, not helping, economic recovery. Finally, the World Trade Organization has already weighed in. In 2020, the WTO ruled that the Trump-era tariffs violated international trade rules, a decision the U.S. promptly appealed. The case has been stalled ever since, with the WTO's appellate body itself in crisis. China's latest push could be an attempt to revive the debate and apply fresh pressure. So, what does this all mean? At its core, this isn't just a fight over import taxes. It's a power struggle over who gets to write the rules of global trade. China wants the world to see the U.S. as a declining hegemon clinging to outdated protectionist tools. The U.S., on the other hand, argues it's defending its economy against a system rigged in China's favor. But the deeper danger is escalation. If China feels its demands are being ignored, it could retaliate in other ways, restricting exports of rare earth minerals, tightening regulations on American firms operating in China, or even moving closer to economic alliances like BRICS to weaken the dollar's dominance. And let's not forget the political angle. Donald Trump is still campaigning for a comeback. If he regains power in 2025, tariffs could not only stay, but intensify. He's already floated the idea of a 10% universal tariff on all imports, a move that economists warn could spark a full-blown global trade collapse. Meanwhile, businesses, workers, and consumers in both countries are caught in the middle, paying higher prices, facing reduced job security, and navigating market chaos. This is no longer just a trade dispute. It's a global standoff with massive economic and geopolitical consequences. As China demands action and the U.S. hesitates, the world stands at a dangerous crossroads. Will diplomacy prevail, or will a new Cold War erupt through economic warfare? Let us know what you think. Are tariffs a necessary defense against unfair trade, or outdated weapons that hurt everyone?
25% tariff on steel and aluminum entering the United States will now be doubled.
That will be a costly tax increase on American families.
Canada's strong. We can stand up for ourselves.
A seismic shift is quietly reshaping the global energy map, and the United States has just been pushed out of the game. For decades, nearly 97% of Canada's crude oil exports flowed directly to the U.S., forming a one-sided dependency, where Canada was merely a supplier and the U.S. dictated the rules of the game. But everything changed in just a few short months when the Trump administration suddenly reimposed a 10% tariff on oil and gas imports from Canada. Instead of negotiating or conceding, Canada chose action. And not just any action, but a strategic table-flipping move. Right after the U.S. launched its tariff strike, Chinese oil giant Rongsheng Petrochemical swiftly opened an office in Calgary, right in the heart of Canada's energy industry. Without fanfare, they quickly signed a crude oil supply agreement with Suncor, one of Canada's largest energy corporations. The first shipments are expected to leave port for China as early as June 2024, but that was only the beginning. Rongsheng is now expanding negotiations with energy titans like Shell, BP, Cenovus, and ConocoPhillips. Most notably, they're not signing fixed contracts. Instead, they're opting for FOB, free on-board terms, allowing shipment destinations to be changed even after the cargo is at sea. This strategy gives China a flexible grip on global oil flow, tailoring it to its own geopolitical agenda. And who's the architect behind this plan? Wang Ji, the veteran energy trader who founded PetroChina's energy trading arm in Canada. A seasoned operator, Wang is quietly steering China deeper into North American energy markets. But none of this would be possible without TMX, the Trans Mountain Expansion Project, completed in early 2024. The pipeline stretches nearly 1,200 kilometers, tripling its transport capacity from 300,000 to 890,000 barrels per day. Most importantly, it allows Canadian crude to reach the Pacific coast directly for the first time, bypassing U.S. territory entirely. South Korea, Japan, and China, countries with refineries designed specifically for heavy crude, can now access Canadian supply directly. The U.S. tariffs have backfired spectacularly, forcing Canada to liberate itself, and in the process, causing America to lose a strategic position it held for decades. The Canadian government didn't stand still either. A $6.5 billion support package was launched, with $5 billion allocated to help businesses access global markets and so $1 billion directed toward agriculture. But most notably, the private sector didn't wait. Companies moved before government aid arrived. And when TMX became operational, the gates to the global market were thrown wide open. What's next? LNG, liquefied natural gas. The LNG Canada project in British Columbia, backed by Shell, Mitsubishi, and PetroChina, is on track to begin exports by the end of 2025. Canada currently exports nearly 8.6 billion cubic feet of gas daily, most of which still goes to the U.S. But with new LNG terminals lining the Pacific coastline and extending to the Arctic, Canada is set to become a direct competitor to the U.S. in the global energy market. Canada is no longer knocking on America's door to make a sale. It's forging its own path, with China and Asia as its new partners. And don't look away, because this is just the tip of the iceberg. This energy conflict is only the surface layer. Beneath it lies a web of secrets, geopolitical strategies, and high-stakes power plays that could reshape the entire global economic order. You're about to uncover truths that have never been revealed in what may become the greatest trade war of the century.